my job is to somehow make them curious enough or persuade them by hook or crook to get more aware of themselves and where they came from.
Alright guys, excuse Roman in the background, but we're coming to you and we're going to do a Q&A. We asked a couple of people a couple of random questions that they wanted to know about us, and we wrote them down, so we're going to answer them to the best of our abilities, right?
Yep.
All right.
I'm ready.
So the first question is, when was our first date?
Depends on who you ask. Our first date was the Wayne County Light Show. If you ask me. But if you ask my wife, she'll tell you our first date was my little cousin's basketball game in Ohio.
Because that was actually the first date.
We drove. I took her out to my father's house. My father was the first person to meet Lórèal in my whole family. I took her out to my father's house, met my father, and then we all followed each other all the way to Ohio for my little cousin's basketball game. And that was our very first outing as a couple. But I say our first date was the light show, because that was like a date I wanted to take her out in. That was our first date.
Okay, so the next question is, when was our first kiss?
I do not know. I couldn't tell you when our first kiss was.
I'm not a big kisser, but I remember my friend Courtney taking me to his house. And I remember me getting ready to leave and he kissed me. It was short and sweet. It wasn't a long...
A knee knocker.
Anyway, wasn't a long kiss, but it was short and to the point.
You got my meaning.
Whatever. So, the next question is, what made us start YouTube? Well, technically, I started YouTube for motivational purposes. And then I seen how you guys took to us as a family. And I decided to add K1 in along with my journey, because K1 is camera shy. And I don't think he knew how you guys were going to take to him, so he was not feeling it at first.
Yeah, I'm not one for in front of the camera. I'm not shy in life, but this is different for me. A bunch of people that I can't see can see me and judge.
Are we done having kids? Whoa.
If the good Lord allow, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, yes, I'm done. Personally, I don't want to have no more kids. I'm old. I'm not trying to be raising kids in my 60s. I don't want to be at the graduation like, oh, your granddaddy here. I'm not his granddaddy. That's my son. Mind your damn business, lady.
Well, technically, I always wanted 4, but
I gave her 3. I got close. 3 and a double.
Pregnancies were hard, and we don't always have the best village helping. So we decided that we're done.
Yeah, everybody got their place. We got Harlem is the first. Blairè is the only girl. That's my baby girl. And the little loudmouth when you hear in the background, Romãn, that's baby boy. Nobody can take nobody's place.
Alrighty. Who came up with the kids' names?
Again, depending on who you ask, the story may change.
It's not even depending on who you ask. Harlem was the name that I said I always wanted to name my son. I told K1 that when we first started talking, and he stuck with it. I wanted to change it. And he was like, no, I really like that. It's different. Let's go with that. So Harlem is Harlem O'Neal. Which
was originally Harlem Isaiah.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be Isaiah, but my mother and my wife came up with the idea because my grandfather had just recently passed before we had Harlem. And his middle name, one of them, was O'Neal. His name was Benny Lee Charles O'Neal Montgomery. But O'Neal was my grandfather's middle name. So my mother kind of jumped it off with the grandfathers. And that's where Harlem O'Neal went from Harlem Isaiah to Harlem O'Neal. Blair was a very long...
No, wait. We need to go back to Harlem. Listen, his mother did not jump anything off. It was supposed to be Harlem Isaiah. And then we changed it to Harlem Charles Brewer. Because his grandfather's name is Charles, and that's K1's middle name as well. But when I found out about the O'Neal, I said, well, wait. Maybe we could do O'Neal since K1 didn't really want his son to take after his name at all. Why? I don't know, but he didn't want it. So we decided that we would go with O'Neal instead of Charles. But Blair name, K1 gave me the hardest time in the world.
He was coming up with the worst names.
No, I found out I was pregnant with Blair, and we found out that she was a girl when I was 11 weeks pregnant. So that's like super early. And I'm like, I'm giving out names. I'm like, what about Raylan? What about this? What about that? And he like, no. I mean, Raylan is fine, but I don't like this and I don't like that. So one day he was asleep and I was like, I was going through just names on Google. And I was like, K1, what do you think of Blair? And he was like, yeah, that's nice. But I thought he was just sleeping. He wasn't really listening to me until he woke up later and he was like, I really liked it, that, you know, that name that you came up with. So we decided on Blair. Her name's Blair Emery Nicole. Nicole is my mom's name.
She sprung it on me at the last minute too because it was just Blair Emery Brewer. But keeping with the family naming thing, she wanted to honor her mother. And I didn't feel anything wrong with that because that's her only daughter. And I thought it was a nice touch, the Emery Nicole. So she asked me, like, the day before she was born.
No, it was the day at the hospital. We was about to sign the birth certificate.
Yeah, the day she was born, we signed the birth certificate. She asked me, and I was like, "That's a nice touch." So we went with the Emery Nicole, and that worked out. And then Romãn.
Oh boy.
Romãn was originally the name I was saving for my next dog. It was Romãn, but we couldn't ever decide.
Well, Romãn name initially was Dennis R.W. Brewer, after my grandfather and his other grandfather.
My father's name is R.W.
But he said the name Romãn, and it stuck with me. It kept bothering me. And I'm like, okay, well, I would talk to Romãn and I would say, well, if your name is Dennis, kick. If your name is Romãn, kick.
And he would kick on both of them.
And he would kick on both of them. So it was like, kind of like, you got to make your own decision on this. So I thought about it and I went and did my photo shoot for my maternity pictures with him. And my friend Sean was like, what about Romãn Dennis R.W. Brewer? How do you feel about that? She's like, because Romãn seems so strong and so powerful. And then me and her, we looked up the biblical term, and it meant a strong child of God. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's it.
What she's not telling you is the nurse teased us because we were getting the ultrasound done. And she was like, oh, my God, what's his name going to be? And we was like, Dennis. And she was like, wait, so you're K1 and you're Lórèal, and you have a Harlem and a Blair, and then you're just going to have a Dennis? It was like, yeah. She's like, that's so regular.
And she said, well, why Dennis? And I said, because that's my grandfather's name.
She's like, oh, well, I guess that's nice, but it's still regular compared to you guys' names. So when Romãn came out, we kind of stuck with it. And it fits him. He's a strong and much a child of God as I've ever seen. That's mainly how we picked all of our children's names. And a little known fact about our family, from me to Lórèal to Harlem, Blairè, and Romãn, all born on a Monday.
Yep. Everybody's born on a Monday.
Born on a Monday. And if you ever want to know if your woman is your soulmate, see if y'all got the same birthmark like me and my wife do. Same birthmark.
Well, everybody was born on a Monday naturally, except Romãn. Romãn was picked to be a Monday baby.
Yeah, everybody else was born on Monday.
Because Romãn was supposed to be a Sunday baby. But we decided that we were going, since we were having a cesarean, that we were going to have him come on a Monday.
Yeah. That completed the quintet. I think that's 5, man. Quintet.
Would you read the next one?
The next one. Oh, wow. This is going to be fun. Who wears the pants in the relationship?
Oh, wait, me.
She, again, depending on who you ask. I'm quiet. She thinks she wear the pants in the relationship. She ain't even got no pants on now. She wear the pants in the relationship.
He don't either. He got on pajama stuff. That don't count.
Listen, I am the man. I am the king in my castle. This is the house that Jack built. Jack name was Juan. I'm running the show around here.
He wear pants though.
I have the respect of my woman.
With that.
I have the respect of my woman. She trusts me enough to lead the way. So don't just try to wear the pants in your household if you really can't wear the pants in your household. You got to make sure you allow your woman to trust you enough to wear the pants in your household. They fit a lot better than you.
Yeah.
Next question. How did having kids affect our marriage? You want to go first?
I can. I think it's, I don't know. I think it's kind of pros and cons to it. I don't think that's just a simple answer. I feel like, at first, I feel like it hindered our marriage because it was like we didn't get to do the honeymoon stage, the in love and staying in bed, and because in bed all day and all of that stuff included somebody else, a third person. Mm-hmm. So even standing at the altar getting married, it was always Harlem in the middle. It was never just us from start. It was always me, K-Wine, and Harlem. With God first. You know what I'm saying? So it never was just us two. But then once it prolonged itself and everything, it started to come natural. And it felt like this marriage wouldn't even be what it was without him. You know what I'm saying? The kids kind of built the foundation of the marriage, if that makes sense. Yeah. And they kind of keep us glued together when things are starting to unravel, as Bear just does. You know, sometimes you might grow apart or sometimes you might have arguments. The kids is always what helps pull us back and help us think to pray and ask God to help, or to even have a second discussion on some things that are hard to discuss.
And for me, it was different because I felt like it didn't change our marriage much or affect our marriage because we were always, I think Harlem was born in September. We got married in June, so we really never had a chance to be married without a child. Mm-hmm. So it didn't affect our marriage. I think having kids so close together, we've had 3 and 4 years. We've been married for 3 years. So every year of our marriage, she's been pregnant. We've had another child. So it didn't really affect it. It was always like a part of it that it just was supposed to be, I guess. I mean, it just felt like it went together. Anniversary, pregnancy. Anniversary, pregnancy. So this being our last baby, I think these next years will, show if our marriage stands the test of time, because we don't have that pregnancy aspect. This will be the first full year, 2020, that we don't have no pregnancy, no new baby. We just going Just me and my wife, just going at it, trying to navigate through. Next question. What's the number one most important thing in a marriage second to God? And I would say communication. Communication is probably the most important thing second to God. If you can't talk, if you can't communicate, if you can't voice your opinion, if you can't have a discussion, even arguments, if you can't argue, you're going to have a very short marriage or a very untrustworthy one, because you have to be able to speak out to maintain that, that openness. If you can't speak to one another, if every conversation is listening to, like him, his communication skills are excellent. If you can hear him, he's trying to get in this video. But if you can't communicate, then arguments turn into fights, even small discussions turn into arguments, everything, starts to kind of snowball. You have to be able to talk things through. I've always said I try, even before we got married, I never want to go to bed mad. I never want to take that anger or whatever we're mad about in the bed. I always, even if I'm not wrong, ain't often, I try to apologize. I try to apologize before we get in the bed or even after we in the bed, so we don't go to sleep with that anger. We always had that open line of communication to get out whatever's bothering us.
What's important to me is trust. And I take that in tow with a man's word. If you give me your word, that's your bond. And I feel like as long as you can stick with your word, I don't mind following you. And I feel like you have to submit in a marriage. You have to follow your husband. You have to make sure he knows that he's the head of the household and he's what's important to see you through. But, yeah, that's it. Just trust for me. More than anything is trust.
Next question. In what areas do we feel most marriages fail? Well, for me, I've seen a lot of marriages fail, especially in my family. A lot of marriages fail. A lot of marriages, people stay around. They probably shouldn't have, given today's standards. But one thing I think, which is probably the leading cause of marriages failing, is probably the same thing I would say is what saves a lot of marriages. The communication. Yeah, lack of communication can kill a marriage quick. It'll destroy a marriage. If you can't talk to each other, you can't voice your opinion. Is that your fake cough? Okay. That's my youngest son. You hear? You're trying to get my attention with your fake cough. Communication. If you can't talk, it makes a hard, stressful day. If you can't talk to the person you chose to welcome into your fold. I brought her into what I had going on. She accepted me into what she had going on. So all the time, everything ain't gonna be peachy keen. Sometimes your lines are gonna cross. And it takes that communication, be it a look, be it a conversation. There are many different types of communication, but having all those different types of communication, the lack thereof will kill a marriage quicker than you got married. It's a shame that people can't talk to one another, but we're just in an age where social skills are being eradicated. I mean, you can text somebody and never see their face. You can have a whole conversation with somebody and never hear their voice. So you don't get the emotion, you don't get the feeling, you don't get the, the deep down sincerity of what they're trying to say. And I think some things, my mother tells me this all the time, some things are just better said in person. And I think when you're dealing with a relationship, some things are better said. I need to hear your voice. I need to see your face. I need to look in your eyes. I need to know that you're feeling what I'm saying. I need to be able to feel what you're saying. And if I'm married to a person and I can't feel what they're saying or I can't trust what they're saying, then it's doomed from the beginning.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I don't think there's really nothing left for me to say on that topic. What can married couples work on to
last?
Okay, to last. Pretty much the same thing I feel like we've been saying over and over and over again. It's repetitive. Communication, trust, knowing that when you get married and understanding that you're supposed to cling to your wife or your husband. That's your foundation. I don't necessarily want to say everybody else is not important, but your household, your immediate, your wife, your kids is first priority. And that's it. Other people are going to be mad. People are going to be upset. Some people are not going to understand. Some people can't relate, but that's just what it is. And that's what it has to be. Because if it's anything else other than that, all else fails. Nothing's going to work because you're going to be so caught up in trying to keep everybody happy that you're upsetting your household. And at the end of the day, you have to sleep there. You have to eat there. These are the people that's with you, whether you're sad, happy, whatever. They're here every day. So you have to know priority. You have to prioritize, to me.
For me, I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit. I think it's reinvention. You got to keep it hot. You got to keep it extra. You got to keep it different. You know, sometimes I'm Charles.
No. Listen. Sometimes, doing all of that get you a lot of kids. Don't listen to him.
Sometimes I'm Chuck.
Don't. Ain't that right, Romãn?
Listen,
that's it.
Sometimes I'm Juan. Yeah, you got to reinvent it. You got to keep it fresh. You know, sometimes you come in the house, you got to be hanging off the banister or something. I don't know. Shit. Sometimes you got to do some extra shit. I mean, you got to always leave something to be desired. If you're doing it the same old way every time, it becomes repetitive. It becomes work. You never want a relationship to be work. You never want your marriage to be work. You want it to be fun and active. That's why sometimes she come home and she get Chuck.
Such a liar. Okay?
Sometimes she come home and she get Charles.
He is. Oh my God.
Get Charles sometimes.
Anyway. The last question. What's the first thing you guys do in the morning? My first thing is I pray, and then I'm usually after I pray, I'm feeding Romãn.
I try to use the bathroom.
Oh God.
First thing in the morning. When I wake up, I gotta use the bathroom. Usually my kids is what wake me up.
No, first thing he do is pick up that phone. Like, shoot, let me see.
I gotta make sure
what Facebook said. Let me see what the plant said. Let me see what the contract is.
Yeah, right now that contract, that's main priority right now. That UAW contract. But my everyday, usually my kids is what wake me up. I get up in the morning, I feed my two oldest breakfast. But I usually be trying to get in the bathroom before they wake up. So if I can get in the bathroom and you know, regulate my stomach here.
Oh my God. Listen.
Then I'm a better man after I use the bathroom in the morning.
Alrighty guys, that's it. We'll talk to you guys next time. I hope we answered everything you guys wanted to know about us as a married couple.
More questions. Might do it again one day. More questions.
Yeah, we might do a part 2.
More interesting questions.
If you have something that you want to know and you send it through, we'll see and we'll weed through what's good and what's not, and we'll do another video.
Okay, we got a baby to tend to.